The month is officially over, and that means it's time for a wrap up. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today is the March 2025 wrap up. So everything I read in March, plus the ratings. Today is also pretty special because this is the second week of my giveaway, and today is my channel's anniversary. That's why we're doing the giveaway. This is an annual giveaway I do on my channel's anniversary every year, which is the March wrap up. So the exciting thing about this giveaway is that you get to choose the book that you win. So if you're selected as the winner, then I'll connect with you on Instagram, if that's okay with you, and we'll exchange information, and you tell me what book you want, and as long as I can get it on Amazon, and as long as you can receive mail that, like, at an address that Amazon recognizes, I can get you your book. I don't think it was last year, but the year previous, my first year, I think I sent a book out of country, and that was super exciting, honestly, to have a subscriber be so far away watching my silly little videos every week. So yeah, if you win the giveaway, you get to pick what book you get. I get it on Amazon and I send it to you. And yeah, as a thank you for being a subscriber. So to enter the giveaway, you need to subscribe. You need to like this video and drop me a comment. It doesn't matter what you say or anything like that. Your comment is your entry. There's only one entry, okay? So I opened the giveaway on the last post, which is the April maybe. So if you already like left me a comment there, like leaving a comment here doesn't give you like an extra entry or whatever. I still want to hear from you because like I love hearing from you guys, but it doesn't give you anything extra towards the giveaway. So yeah, subscribe, like, one comment is one entry, and you're limited to one entry. So yeah, please do all the things. I'm always excited to do a giveaway for you guys. So yeah, and I will be announcing the winner in next week's post. Before we get into it, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and all we do on this channel is talk about books. So if you like listening to people talk about books, here I am every week doing just that for you. Let's go over my rating system real quick, and then we'll get into what I read in March. 5 stars means best of the best. I absolutely loved it. I have no notes. I will recommend it to anybody and everybody. 4 stars means I still really liked it, but it did have some issues. Maybe it was pace. Maybe there were a few characters I didn't enjoy. I still really liked it, and I would recommend it. 3 stars means I didn't like it, but it was a subjectivity issue, which means I just wasn't the right reader for the book. The book is probably fine. It just wasn't for me, but I would happily recommend it to somebody who I thought would be the right reader for it. 2 stars means I didn't like it, and I probably won't recommend it. It had legitimate issues, and I don't think I would recommend it to anybody. 1 star is the worst of the worst. I absolutely hated this book. I probably will never read the author again, and it was a complete waste of my time. I usually reserve my 1-star books for truly heinous books, like ones that celebrate like racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, ableism, books that support like grooming and things like that, and not like in a trigger way, like this is a trauma book and we're seeing someone grow. Like, we're talking about books that are like blatantly saying like it's okay to do all these things and be all these things with no teachability about it. Not many books get the 1 star, honestly, so yeah. Definitely not any books today. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. The first book I read in March was The Perfect Guest by Emma Rous. Okay, I don't really know how to explain this book because it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. But basically, we're following 2 stories that are set in the same place. So the first story is like from the 1980s. This young girl who's 14, she's an orphan, and her aunt is like, hey, I've kind of arranged for you to live with this couple and their daughter, and you're gonna be like a companion for her because you can't come live with me, basically. And so she gets shipped off to this family that lives in like this super fancy house, and they homeschool their daughter because like she gets sick a lot or something like that. And so yeah, they basically sort of adopt her to be like a companion for their daughter. And the more that we get into it, the more that we find out this family has like really weird secrets that they're asking this young girl to be a part of. Jump to like the present, and we have a young woman that's kind of in the middle of her life, like on the downhill. Okay, things are not going well. She keeps getting fired from these jobs and she can't really make her rent payments and things like that. She gets approached by her agent and says, there's a gig and I think you should take it. It pays really well. Basically, you just have to pretend to be a guest at this like murder mystery weekend event. And there wasn't a lot of information, but basically the company was going to be like paying for her to do everything, and all she had to do was like show up and memorize some lines and be a part of this like murder mystery event for the weekend. And she was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great, the money's good, I need it, and this would give me a chance to like maybe get a full-time job there eventually. So she gets there and everything seems to be going okay, and then all of a sudden everything starts going like really weird. People start getting sick, there's weird things happening around the house, and there's just this air of like mystery, like outside of what's happening in the like mystery event for the guests. There's a lot of things that are a little too coincidental to be accidental. And if you could guess, the setting of the murder mystery weekend is at the house where the couple from the 80s, like the mansion place that they all lived. So, I don't know what else to tell you guys about this book because it's super complicated. And I don't want to tell you any more till kind of like, I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. So yeah, that is kind of the setup of the book. And we're sort of jumping between the past and the present, and we're trying to figure out how all of this connects around this house. Like you can tell everything connects together, and you're trying to fit the pieces together as we go. So I had mixed feelings on this book, and it took me a really long time to rate it because I really just didn't know how I felt. Because on the one end, the story of it was actually super interesting, but there were a lot of things that did not work well for me. The pace was a problem some of the time. I had a lot of trouble keeping the characters straight. Like the cast list was really big, and that became a problem because we're trying to connect the pieces, right? We're trying to put the past and the present together. And so it became hard to distinguish characters, and when you're trying to fit the pieces together, it was hard to keep them clear. So that was a problem for me too. And then the present timeline caused a lot of issues for me because it was very precarious, if that makes any sense. Like when you're reading a thriller and you see things that are stacked a little too nicely to be like believable, that's kind of like where we were with it, where it was like any type of slip up would have caused the storyline to fall apart completely. And that's kind of how I felt reading it most of the time. Especially when we got to the ending and there was like the big reveal and everything. I was sitting there thinking like, how did she think she was going to pull this off? How did she think this was going to play out? If you read the book, I'd be interested to know what you thought about it as well. I ended up rating it 4 stars, which I know I said like it just had problems. The story was really good. Like the 1980s story was really good, and like how they connected it all to the present was really good. It was the present storyline that gave me the most problems. And when I tell you guys I flip-flopped in between a 3 and a 4 for a really long time, I didn't rate it until the very end of the month, and it was the first book I read. So if I had to be like super specific about the rating, I would say it's a really high 3 and a really low 4. So yeah, I felt conflicted about the rating on this book, and it's just because I can't quite comprehend how I feel about it. Overall, I think it was good. I did it on audio, and I thought the audio was pretty good, but I think I would have been able, well, I think I did this one 50-50. Yeah, because I had a hard copy of the book too. I had a better understanding of the book when I was reading it. So yeah, I think if I probably read the hard copy, I might have been a little less confused about the characters, because I feel like the narrator wasn't helping me a lot distinguish people, but I don't know. Like I said, the present timeline really messed with me. Everything else was really good. The next book on the list was The Retreat by Sarah Pearse. Y'all, this is the second book of the Elin Warner series. The first one was A Sanatorium. I'm so proud of myself for picking this up. And let me tell you, it's been a while since I've read The Sanatorium, so I was worried about picking up this book because it's the sequel and like feeling lost. This picked up beautifully. I had no issues with it, and I absolutely loved the story. So we have Elin Warner, who is a detective, and she's coming back from a long sabbatical. Okay, that's kind of what happened to her in the sanatorium like she was on. break, and she also was like on vacation and she had to solve a murder mystery. So now we're back with Elin after she's like officially come back to work. She's sort of rusty, you know, she's got her training wheels still on. Her boss is still kind of babying her a little bit just to make sure she's ready to go back. So there's lots of hints about the past that we didn't get from the sanatorium that we're getting in this book, and I feel like it's going to lead up to like something really cool for the finale. Anyway, not to get sidetracked, but basically Elin gets put on a case that is set on a very deserted island that her husband helped design, okay? And she gets there finally, and they find out that this like guest has died. And basically this island has a lot of issues with its past. Like, there was already a mass murder that happened on this island. There's been lots of disappearances over the years. Lots of like a seedy underbelly to the historical references to this island. And so like when they bought the island and they wanted to put the retreat on there, I mean like this basically bougie hotel chain, they were like, we want to rewrite history. We want to erase the past. Okay. And now like the past is like coming out in like full force here. And so we're getting the past of the island. We're also getting the points of view from the group of guests. Like there's a group of them that came together, and one of them is the one that died that brought Elin to the island. So we're getting their whole story, and then we're getting Elin's point of view too as the detective on the case. This was done incredibly well, and I was just so reminded of how much I love Sarah Pearse's writing. Like, it's so good. And like I said, there's a lot of things that she added to this that really put emphasis on Elin's past and why she ended up going on sabbatical, which we didn't get that story from the sanatorium. We just knew that something had happened. So now we're getting kind of like a broader scope of that. We're building up a lot to what I'm assuming will be the third book installment, the big finale for this trilogy. And that made me excited. I did this one 50-50 audio and hard copy. I do not recommend the audio. The narrator for the audio made the dialogue incredibly difficult. Okay, you could not tell when the dialogue was changing between two people. That made it really hard to follow. I struggled the entire time with the audiobook until I was eventually like, I can't do the audiobook anymore, and I switched to the hard copy. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend the audio. I would just do the hard copy if I were you. And that made a lot more sense to me. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I know like I kind of raved about it a little bit. There were issues, okay? There were things that I felt were not completely wrapped up, completely answered. And with thrillers, if there's plot holes, it can't get the 5 stars from me. So that's where I was at with it. And that's funny because like when you look at the guests, the perfect guests, you know, that I read and I gave it a 4 and I gave this one a 4, this is a much higher 4 than the perfect guest got, okay? This is a very high 4. Honestly, I seriously had like 2 questions by the end of the novel, and if Sarah Pearse had wrapped up those loose ends for me, I would have easily given it the 5 because the pace was really good, the story was really good. It all really came together at the end, and I wouldn't say I didn't see a lot of it coming, but a lot of the pieces, like, I had trouble putting them together because I wasn't understanding the timeline. That was another reason why it didn't get the 5 stars, is because I could not figure out the timeline correctly. And by the time we got to the end of the book and the timeline was kind of like explained, I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. But it would have been nicer for me to follow along, understanding the timeline from the beginning, to be able to put the pieces together. So yeah, that is book 2 of the Elin Warner series, and yeah, I was happy to read it. Okay, so this is the last one. It's The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This was chosen for my book club. Y'all, I had a time with this book. I will tell you right now, you need to read the trigger warnings for this book, okay? If you have any triggers, sexual triggers, anything like that, sexual assault, trauma like that, then you can't read stuff like that, you have to skip this book, because this ended up being so much darker than I originally thought. Like when I went back and read the synopsis, I was like, they really did not prepare you for what this book was going to be about, okay? We have our female main character. She's living in Texas with her husband, and she's kind of like living this glorified housewife vibe. You know, like she quit her job and she's like, I'm pursuing my writing. I'm writing a book. except your girl is not writing a book, okay? She's just kind of like at home chilling when we open the story. And she hears on this podcast that she listens to, the podcast person, like the narrator for the podcast, is a really old friend of hers. And as she's listening to his podcast, she finds out that one of her best friends from college died, and that the circumstances surrounding her death are eerily similar to a death of their friend that also died in college. So immediately she's like, something's not right, everything's gone wrong, I need to go and investigate the death of my friend. So she hooks up with the podcast narrator, who's her old friend, and she's like, we need to investigate this because something's not right here. And so they start digging into the death of her friend from college, like that died recently, and then they start digging into the death of the girl that died in college that was their friend as well. I know that sounded a little confusing, and I apologize. There's not really a way to like explain it. Like basically, one of their friends, they were all roommates, one of them died in college, suspiciously. Now it's like 10 years, something like that later, and the other roommate died under suspicious circumstances as well. And so, yeah, this is kind of like what sparks the investigation. And let me tell y'all, the rabbit hole that this woman and this podcast narrator guy go down is wild. Never did I think that this would turn into what it turned into, okay? This book is messed up, it's dark, it's twisty, and actually Winstead did not hold back, okay? There are a lot of critics in the review section for this book, and I feel like a lot of people, number one, a lot of people were saying like, not very believable, not very plausible, blah, blah, blah. She got lucky. Whatever, it's a fiction book. It's a fiction book. It's made up. Like, I don't know. I don't know how else to explain that. Like, it doesn't always have to be plausible. And she's the main character, okay? Like, I don't know. And when you get into the book and people were like, I don't know how she didn't get caught, didn't get this, didn't get that. I also just have to believe with my whole heart that there was a reason. If you read the book, I feel like you know what I mean when I say that. There's a reason that she made it all the way there. I wholeheartedly believe that. And then you got a lot of people in the review section saying they didn't like it because it was very triggering. Yes, the content is extremely triggering. Did the author give you a heads up of that? Absolutely not. Okay? There was no trigger warning. There was no nothing. Nothing in the synopsis of this book made me believe that this book was going to be this dark. Okay? So, again, if you're worried about triggers, check the trigger warnings. And I think the author should have been a little bit more forthcoming with some of the content, honestly. The rest of the people that didn't like it, I don't know. It just wasn't for them. I think that this was an incredibly interesting thriller. This made me think a lot. It really opened my mind quite a bit, and I found that really interesting. I wasn't really expecting that going into a thriller. She wrapped this up perfectly. Like, all the loose ends were tied up so nicely. If the ending had gone any other way, I would have been mad, okay? One of my friends that's on the book club with me, usually sometimes we have like a little aside conversation before we have the book club meeting, and she texted me, she's like, what did you think of the ending? And I hadn't got to the ending yet, and I told her, if she screws up this ending, if Ashley Winstead does not nail this ending, I can't give it 5 stars. And as I was reading it, like, I had started reading it sooner than my friend, and so she was kind of catching up with me. And I told her, I was about halfway through the book, and I said, if she pulls off the ending, this will be the best thriller I've read this year. Y'all, she pulled off the ending. Okay, I gave it 5 stars. It is the best thriller I've read this year, but it's messed up, okay? You know, I just read Gather the Daughters. I feel like it was a couple months ago, like maybe in January. This has a lot of similar vibes to that. I encourage you to watch my review for that, read the synopsis for that. They were not similar books, they had similar veins, okay, I would say. The roots of these books were very similar, and I remember telling you guys that that book was very dark. It was a lot. It's a lot more than I was expecting out of that book. This book, I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting a thriller about a woman investigating the deaths of her two friends. Okay. And that's what it was. It was just a lot more than I was expecting. And if you guys remember, if you watched the April Maybes, I said I needed something light and fun. This book is why. Something a little bit different. The darkness in this book was really unsettling for me in some places, and I felt like I had to change course correct, okay? Plus, all of the books I read in March were thrillers, and I really just needed something different, okay? I really did. This book was incredibly fun to do for book club too. We had a huge turnout. It was so nice to see so many people at the book club that night, and we had so many great conversations about this book. So yeah, if you're looking for, I guess, something to discuss with people, you will have a lot of discussions about this book. There were a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, check the trigger warnings. It's kind of dark, but it was the best. It is the best thriller I've read this year. Okay, that's all. That's all I have for you guys today. That's what I read in March. Honestly, it was a good month. Okay, 3 thrillers. One, it was fine. One really amazing, and one in between. So yeah, I feel like that was a really good wrap up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, drop a comment to be entered into the giveaway. I'll be announcing the winners next week. And yeah, I don't have a ton else for you guys. Life for me is getting more and more busy. It's just springtime, you know, everything's kind of happening in the spring for us, I feel like. So yeah, I don't have anything else for you guys, so I will see you all next time. Bye.